This recipe is a type of sponge cake. It's Russian apple cake. I got the idea for this from the British baking show. Sponge cakes don't use as much leavening as they do have you whip the eggs and the sugar together to get it nice and light and airy. This is a new technique for me, so it's kind of pushing me in a new baking direction. Enjoy. So in the bowl, I've got 1 1/3 cup of flour and 1/8 of a teaspoon of baking powder. And I'm just gonna whisk them together just because I think it's a good idea to get them nice and mixed up. Even though with this cake, when I add the flour to the egg mixture, I'm going to put it through a sieve so it goes in a real light form. I'll hopefully be able to show you that process. Okay, one of the things I've done in preparation is I've generously buttered and lined with parchment paper a springform pan. For those of you unfamiliar with baking, springform pan just means when I trip that little switch down there, the bottom will drop out and it'll be really easy to get the cake out of the pan. So one additional step that I'm doing that the recipe doesn't call for, just because I think it'll really help the whisking and allowing the eggs to really get light and airy. The recipe calls for 1 cup of sugar, and I put that 1 cup of sugar in a bullet blender, and I'm gonna powderize it first. I didn't know you could make your own confectioner's sugar with a blender, but I've done it and it turns out really light and powdery, like powdered sugar, obviously. So I'm gonna be using this for my 1 cup of sugar to go into the whisking eggs. The recipe calls for 3 Granny Smith apples, peeled and cored. I'm going to show you the method I learned from a cooking show, and when I'm making or using apples, this is what I do. So first you take a obviously sharp knife, and in the end you're going to go around, and I actually rotate the apples. And see, you get a nice little core out. Looks just like that. Flip it over. Same to the other side. Now I'm going to peel it. And I learned this kind of from my grandmother, is instead of moving the knife, I actually move the apple. And I'll probably only show you one of these and then do the other 2 on my own. My grandmother used to challenge me with how long a continuous peel you could get. And there's actually competitions to do that. I hope you can, yeah, you can see what's going on. My helper in the background, my dog Tia, usually would be by my side asking for the cores. The peels are also good roughage for her, but we're not going there today. Yeah, get a little brown spot, but that's okay. It's going to get baked. Got that. Okay. Slice the apple in half. And then the exact same thing that I did to get the end cores out, I'm going to do to get the central cores out. And there we go, 2 apples ready to be chopped up to go into the cake. I'm gonna do the other 3 on my own and continue on with the recipe. Okay, I've got 6 eggs in a blender. And really important with stuff like this, these eggs have been out so they're at room temperature. That really, really does impact baking. Especially if there was butter in here. It's odd because this cake doesn't have a lot of butter. So I'm going to get this going. And I'm going to whip these till they're really, really light and fluffy. I got to kind of pay attention to the eggs, so I'll be back and I'll show you the finished product. Okay, I'm letting the eggs go. You can see the edges, the bubbles are starting to form. And that's really what I'm shooting for. I want my eggs as light as possible before I start adding the sugar. I hope you can hear my voice okay. I'm just turning that. That's where I'm going to be adding the sugar. Okay, my egg has started to lighten up and change color. And that is what I'm looking for. That means it's got the air in it. So I am taking this 1 cup of what was regular sugar, but I had put it through the bullet blender, and I'm going to add it to it slowly. I don't want the powder coming out at me, and I can actually I don't know about you, but I can see the sugar powder coming out. So I'm going to put this camera down and show you the end. Okay, I've added all my sugar and I'm getting ready to stop the blender. You can see how nice and light and fluffy it is. And here we go. Excellent. Now I'm ready to add the flour and powder mixture. So what I'm adding is the flour baking powder mixture to my egg sugar mixture. And I'm going to do it through a sifter so that it's nice and light and fluffy. And this way, I know that it'll get incorporated nicely. And then I'm going to fold that in. Here's my springform pan. I've added the apples to the bottom of the springform pan. I've reserved some apples for the top of the cake. I'm going to pour the cake in here. I'll show it to you, and then I'll add the apples. Here's my cake ready to go in the oven. It bakes at 340 degrees for 1 hour. I'll get back to you when it comes out. So it's just out of the oven. I'm going to wait 15 minutes and then run a knife around the edge of it and get it out of the pan, and then I let it completely cool before I top dress it with confectioner's sugar. It's just come out of the springform pan, and now I've got to let it completely cool until I put the powdered sugar on it, because if you don't, what ends up happening is the sugar will look nice for a bit, but it will clarify, almost like it melts into the cake. And you want it to look like snow on top of it, I think. Okay, and last step, I am covering the top with powdered sugar. It's cooled to room temperature.
How long do you wait?
It is cooled to room temperature. And the key thing is you just don't want the sugar to turn clear after you put it on. You